Okay, and then I'll go live shortly. We have someone permeated our wall, someone with backdoor pass. Some firemen. All right. I'll do this at your discretion, so should I just go open it? You ready? Okay. All right, I'm letting the public in.
Hello and welcome.
Just some tech stuff up front for candidates. If you're trying to unmute yourself, or you will be unmuted when the time comes. We're just trying to keep everything. All right. Chairperson, or who starts?
That would be you.
Was that me? Sorry. All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Steven Torres. I am the executive co-chair of the Castro LGBTQ Cultural District Advisory Board, which is the governing body of the Castro LGBTQ Cultural District. Just a little bit about what the district is that we were established in 2018 to 2019 through legislative process through the city and county of San Francisco as part of the Greater San Francisco Cultural District program. And we were brought into existence by approval of our administrative code. As such, we work as a channel between the community to the city in centering and preserving our rich LGBTQ heritage and through the lenses of diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. I don't have it available to me. Jen, who do I pass over to next?
Oh, well, so you can pass it to me.
Okay, and I'll pass it over to my co-chair.
Okay, so hi, I'm Jen Reck. I use she and they pronouns, and I am the other executive co-chair of the Castro LGBTQ Cultural District Advisory Board. So happy to see everyone here tonight. Thanks so much for attending. We're excited to hear from the candidates. Before I kind of read some disclosures, I just wanted to mention the agenda. So first, after the disclosures, we're going to have an introduction to the Castro LGBTQ Cultural District. We're then going to share about advisory board member roles and responsibilities. We'll share the election timeline and structure. Then we'll have a chance to meet the candidates. We'll introduce the candidates and provide time for each of them to give a statement. And then at the end of the meeting, we'll have about 20 minutes for questions and answers. So I am going to read the disclosures to open the meeting. We, the Castro LGBTQ Cultural District Advisory Board, acknowledge that we're on the unceded ancestral homeland of the Ramaytush Ohlone, who are the original inhabitants of the San Francisco Peninsula. As the indigenous stewards of this land, and in accordance with their traditions, the Ramaytush Ohlone have never ceded, lost, nor forgotten their responsibilities as the caretakers of this place, as well as for all peoples who reside in their traditional territory. As guests, we recognize that we benefit from living and working on their traditional homeland. We wish to pay our respects by acknowledging the ancestors, elders, and relatives of the Ramaytush Ohlone community and by affirming their sovereign rights as First Peoples. This meeting is being held on Zoom. It's being recorded. The recording will be made available on Cultural District's social media platforms and our website for viewing by the public between September 28th and October 1st. All calendared full board and committee meetings are held in compliance with the San Francisco Sunshine Ordinance and California Brown Act. We welcome the public's participation during public comment periods. There will be an opportunity for the public to ask questions of the candidates at the end of the town hall. So to do so, please write your questions in the chat feature at any time during the meeting, and we'll facilitate the Q&A at the time that we've designated for it in the agenda. All right, so I'd like to pass it off now to our district director, Tina Valentina Gary, to introduce the district and the work that we do.
Thank you. One note, I think, Jen, since the chat is disabled, I don't know how questions will be input by people. So just a quick question.
Stephen can.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, just to clarify, questions in the chat will go directly to me.
Got it. Okay. Although if everybody else has the same experience that I'm having, the chat is completely disabled, which means I wouldn't be able to chat.
Okay, let me check something real quick. Just a second.
Okay. Sorry, y'all. Obviously, we're trying our best here with technical challenges. I am going to reframe this and just share a bunch of appreciation for everybody who's here. The Castro LGBTQ Cultural District, there are many people, many efforts that are needed in order to make the Castro a thriving, successful place for all of us. And it really does depend on volunteers. Volunteers like yourselves who are showing up and throwing your hat in the ring for an election. And I want to also acknowledge that we have some outgoing advisory board members who have put in a lot of time and effort into the Castro LGBTQ Cultural District. Stephen Torres is one of them, who is an outgoing advisory board member effective December. So that's just a little bit of appreciation there for outgoing members, existing members, and prospective members. You candidates, thank you for showing up and being here. Showing up is a lot of what's needed, and then doing the work, of course, is a big part of the rest of it. And then along the way, I think we're going to be able to make some great change for the neighborhood. I'll take a step back and share my name and my role and my pronouns. My name is Tina Valentina Aguirre. I'm the Cultural District Director for the organization. That means that I'm the lead staff. I'm in charge of operations, and I work closely with the advisory board. I'm going to read the mission of the organization so that can serve as a foundational piece of information. The Castro LGBTQ Cultural District is committed to preserving, sustaining, and promoting the rich cultural legacy of the Castro and its significance to San Francisco's LGBTQ+ community and beyond. Our goals are to highlight the structures and sites important to our history, foster racial, ethnic, gender, and cultural diversity amongst residents and businesses, and create a safe, beautiful, and inclusive space for LGBTQ+ and allied communities to visit from around the world and call the Castro home. I'll share that I'm really happy about the role that I play with the organization. I've been in my role for 3 years, and I help shepherd the connections that our organization has to city entities that include the San Francisco Planning Department, Office of Economic and Workforce Development, Mayor's Office of Housing and Community Development, and the San Francisco Arts Commission. We center LGBTQ+ people, places, and culture using racial, gender, and queer equity frameworks. We work to prevent displacement and gentrification for LGBTQ+ people, especially lesbians and queer women, transgender individuals, and LGBTQ people of color. One of the main duties of my job is to make sure that we complete a CHESS report. It's a strategic plan for the Castro that's done every 3 years. CHESS stands for Cultural, History, Housing, and Economic Sustainability Strategies. I'm happy to report that is currently being reviewed by the city. It should be completed and up for review by the Board of Supervisors in the next few months. There will be a town hall specifically on the draft of the CHESS report before it goes to a Board of Supervisors vote. I hope all of you stay tuned for that as well. And context for that is that we held focus groups over the last 2 years to collect data and that informed the report. And then we use many data sources from different departments in the city and sources of data that augment what's missing on the city level for the CHESS report. I'm also happy to share that we have a very strong small business support program. In total, we've provided more than $130,000 to small businesses that serve the Castro neighborhood. If you follow us on social media, you'll find the names of the specific businesses that were recently awarded with our grants, activation grants that were funded by the Office of Economic and Workforce Development. A total of 6 small businesses received $6,000 each for activations, and I'm really proud of that. I'm also going to share for the candidates here that we have a couple of training opportunities that will come up next week and over the rest of October. I'm going to share that with all of you offline outside of this meeting to see if you're interested in participating in those. Those are related to diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility trainings that I think might be useful if you're interested. Beyond that, I want to share that what I'm excited about is you as potential advisory board members will be able to participate in the development of policies. And what I want to also make sure that I share is that staff holds operations. And that distinction in roles and responsibilities is very important as we continue this process of the election. I also just want to say good luck and thank you for being here. Thank you for throwing your hat in the ring again. And I'm looking forward to meeting you in person at the Castro Street Fair. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Tina. I'm going to jump in because I'm going to discuss the advisory board member roles and responsibilities. And so just to kind of echo something that Director Aguirre just said, the advisory board is a policymaking board. And so our role is to really kind of look to the community and kind of figure out the needs of the neighborhood as it relates to our mission and develop policies that guide the operational work that the staff does. And so just to kind of describe the responsibilities that you have to hold if you're committing to be a board member. The advisory board has 15 seats. We do have the option to add additional seats at the discretion of the advisory board. And so the main responsibilities of advisory board members include to attend a monthly advisory board meeting that's in person, required in person, and to attend other events or functions as requested. Before that meeting, you're expected to review the agenda and any supporting materials to prepare. We all need to commit to being informed about current challenges that are faced by LGBTQ communities in the Castro. Each board member is required to join a committee. The current standing committees are land use, arts and culture, and economic and workforce development. You are expected to chair or co-chair a committee, regularly attend committee meetings. And committee meetings at this time are all virtual. but that's at the discretion of the chairs of those committees. We assist in the ongoing development of the advisory board and its bylaws. We assist in the identification and recruitment of new advisory board members and committee members. Just to note, our committees also have public members. So members of the public can be members of our standing committees. As a member of the advisory board, we provide oversight and governance of the cultural district. We ensure the fiscal health of the cultural district, approve the annual budget, assist in fundraising, and ensure the fulfillment of the cultural district's mission. And at the base of all of the work we do is that we support centering underrepresented LGBTQ community members. And so this includes lesbians and bisexual women, LGBTQ, people of color, and transgender individuals in the district. And so I'm now going to pass off to our governance committee chair, Cesar Cadaves.
Hi, everyone. I'm Cesar Cadaves. I'm the interim governance chair as well as communications chair. And I'm going to cover some information about the election timeline and structure and how folks can vote and so forth. So first of all, eligibility. Those who are eligible to vote need to be a resident of the 9 Bay Area counties. And in terms of voting, there are 2 ways to vote: in person, at the booth at Castro Street Fair, or remotely. And so if you're voting in person, you have to present an ID or some sort of document like utility bill that has your name and your current resident. And again, the residence has to be within the 9 Bay Area counties. If you're voting remotely, there's a remote ballot and you'll have to upload that documentation, whether it's a photo ID or a utility bill or something that, again, documents your name and your current residence. As far as the candidate information, we have 8 candidates who are running for 5 open seats this election. You can find the information of the candidates on our social media, Facebook and Instagram. We are working to put that also on our website, so you'll be able to find that there as well. Some of the candidates will be at the Castro Street Fair, so you can meet them, have a discussion about why they're running and what they bring, what they can bring to the board, and so forth. As far as election monitoring, we have the Harvey Milk LGBTQ Democratic Club and the Alice B. Toklas Democratic Club members who will be handling all the election oversight, post-election verifications of the online ballots, as well as the in-person verification, and then the tabulations for the election. Now, in order for candidates to qualify in this election, they have to meet a minimum of 30% of the total number of votes cast. 30% of the total number of votes cast. That's the minimum that the candidates have to reach. So if all 8 candidates reach that threshold, it will go in order of who gets the most votes and so forth to win those 5 seats. If not every candidate meets that 30% threshold, those seats that were not filled will be appointed by the advisory board. And you can look at keep an eye out on our social media and our website when we do a call for nominations, if that's where we go. Okay. Let's see. The announcement of the winning candidates, we hope to have that the next day. Again, that will be dependent on the volume of votes that we get and the amount of time it takes to verify all of those, the documentation for verifications. I think that's it. Co-chairs, have I missed anything about election and procedures?
I don't think so.
I don't think so. And just a note, because of some technical challenges, if you indeed still are able to chat with the whole group, I would just ask that when the time comes for the Q&A to send your question directly to me, Stephen Torres, and then I will relay the question just to keep it in order. And I see our district director. Just a second. Okay.
Just a quick note, please follow us on Facebook and Instagram. We do provide updates on our website, although it is a little more time consuming to do that. So the fastest way to get information regarding the election results will be social media. And we will be able to post information on the website on Tuesday, by end of day Tuesday. So the information will be available before that on Facebook and Instagram.
I see one of the candidates has a question. Is this regarding the logistics of the day of?
There you go. Thanks. I had a question about the voting process. Well, two actually. I guess the first would be, do you have a sense of when the online link will be available to share? And then just to clarify, for people who are eligible to vote, how many candidates can they vote for?
Oh, thank you. Good questions. I didn't cover that. Voting will be open at the booth and online. The remote ballot will be live from 12 to 4. We will look to see if we can post that beforehand and not make it available until 12 to 4. So 12 to 4 are the voting hours. We have 5 seats and 8 candidates. You can vote for up to 5 people. Thanks. And now I'm handing it off to Advisory Board Member Andrew Gutierrez.
Hi, everyone. I'm Drew. I go by he, him. I'm a current advisory board member. I'm a part of the governance committee, which supports and leads the district's election. So I'm super excited to meet all of you as well as hear your statements. So we're going to go ahead and have each candidate will be given 2 minutes to introduce their name, pronouns, as well as read their statement. And so I'm going to drop in the chat the order of candidate statements so folks are aware. Also, I will be keeping time on my phone as a timer for 2 minutes. So once it goes off, I will go ahead and unmute and allow the speaker to pause so that we can go ahead and go over to the next speaker. Are there any questions before we go ahead and begin? No? Awesome. Let's go ahead and begin with the first candidate, Wyatt Robertson, he, him.
Hi, everyone. My name is Wyatt Robertson, and I'm running for the Castro LGBTQ Advisory Board, like 7 of us others here. I've lived here for almost 5 years now, and I've just absolutely fallen in love with the Castro community. I've worked at Santeria at 2251 Market Street, right next to High Tops, for the last 2.5 years. The last year of which I've probably been the general manager. Prior to that, I worked for our District 8 supervisor, Raphael Mandelman, as head of fundraising for his 2022 re-election campaign. I also host bi-monthly trivia at the Detour, and I've been the captain of a queer dodgeball team in the Castro for 8 seasons now. I regularly photograph events around the Castro, and I volunteered as a crisis counselor for the Trevor Project that serves suicidal queer youth weekly for the past 2.5 years. Bringing people together is my passion, and I just can't think of a better place to do that than in the Castro. The Castro has just been a wonderful place for me to experience like my true self. I've been able to live that so authentically. And I know that in my original statement, I had a bell hooks quote there about queerness not being about sexuality, but as being about the self that is at odds with everything around it. And just how I don't feel that way in the Castro at all. And I really want to expand that to a lot of other people. I know I only have about like 45 more seconds for this, so I wanted to get into more why I was running. I hear so much about how the Castro used to be about 10, 15 years ago. People in the streets, there were multiple events that would shut down Market Street in addition to that block on Castro. I really want to be on the arts and culture side of things, or at least chair one of those boards, because I think I can really bring together a lot of various groups of people. I really think that everything that the advisory board does is really important, but I know that I would be able to flourish there, bringing a bunch of other people together. I'd love to see more people in the Castro than just sort of like the white gay men that you see walking around everywhere. I think that it's a wonderful place, and yes, I would be honored to have your vote or be included in the 5 that you choose on your ballot.
Thank you, Wyatt. Appreciate that. Going on to the next candidate, Anha, he, him.
Hi, my name is Anha and use he, him pronouns. And I want to be a board member of the Castro LGBTQ Cultural District because I deeply believe in the goals of this organization. I'll bring a fresh, unique perspective and invigorating spirit to the board that will uplift others. The Castro is my first LGBTQ plus home, and I want to preserve it so that others can say the same. I believe in preserving our significant history and also believe that we need to selectively promote progress to build a community that can continue to embrace people of different backgrounds. The Castro is a haven for people in the LGBTQ community, and it can rise to its reputation as a world-class destination for tourists and also be an amazing community for the people living here. I started grassroots organizing in DC in 2008, where I helped organize a citywide street game that brought people to new neighborhoods, highlighted local queer businesses, and promoted the use of public spaces. I helped organize this event in San Francisco as well in 2015, and I want to work to further introduce fun events and activations that can highlight the amazing businesses and spaces that we have in the Castro. In a corporate capacity, I have worked to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion, and I've experienced writing corporate policy to reflect these standards and keep up with new laws and regulations. I was director of operations at a political consulting firm, and I would love for the opportunity to advise our current leaders with this spirit in mind. Since May, I've collaborated with the Castro Merchants Association to promote the Castro Art Walk, which has successfully revived local businesses and also highlighted the local art scene. In June, I joined the advisory board's Arts and Culture Committee as a public member, and I've been learning more about the board, its mission, and the power of its impact on our neighborhood. As an official advisory board member, I would strive to continue this work to promote queer art and to build the Castro as a premier arts district of San Francisco. Thank you.
Thank you, Anha. Going on to our next candidate, Brian Hill, he, him.
Hi. Hi, everyone. Thank you all for taking the time this evening to join us. I'm Brian, and as you just heard, my pronouns are he, him. I hope you'll consider me for the board of the Castro LGBTQ Cultural District. 4 years ago, I moved from New York to San Francisco, and I couldn't see myself anywhere other than the Castro, so I moved here. This incredible community welcomed me with open arms. I spend a lot of time at our bars, restaurants, epic drag shows, and the dog park. And along the way, I have met so many people that epitomize the spirit of the Castro's unique and diverse LGBTQ community. Professionally, I'm an architect, and I specialize in both affordable and market rate multifamily housing for the past 20 years. I'm passionate about creating walkable, vibrant urban neighborhoods that welcome all people. And the Castro is one of, if not the most iconic LGBTQ plus neighborhood in the world. So much history has been made here. And by advocating for our LGBTQ residents, artists, and businesses, I think we can work together to ensure that we continue to make queer history. I'm a listener first, and I try to find common ground and build consensus when people have opposing views. I work hard, and I want to pour that effort into this community that I've really grown to love. And really, the Castro is a community that's inherently loving of and welcoming to all. And it's this diversity in our community that makes us all stronger. So thank you for considering me. It would be a great privilege to serve you. Thanks.
Thank you, Brian Hill. We're going to go ahead and go to our next candidate, Calvin Landrum, he, him.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Calvin. Yes, my pronouns are he, him. And I want to be on the advisory board, and I'd love to be one of your picks. I was born and raised in Waco, Texas, and I will pause for groans for one moment. But I've called San Francisco my home for the last 5 years, like many others who are running for the sport. It's kind of nice. We all have a very similar timeline. I was a two-time AmeriCorps volunteer. I worked in national service in the US government. I was a corporate trainer at a consulting firm. And most recently, I made the leap into hospitality because I'd like to one day own my own bar or restaurant and, hopefully in the Castro. I consider myself to be a pretty intrinsically service-oriented person. I love to serve. I love to kind of lend a hand and be where I'm most useful. I really want to serve for two reasons. I think I want future generations to see the Castro as a North Star or some sort of Oz, a place to come and kind of really be yourself. And I was really inspired by the board's ability to organize around important issues. It was really great to see them be a loud advocate for the will of some of the members of the community. When I was deciding to run, I spoke with a lot of people, a lot of friends, and even strangers, and a few topics kept coming up. One was making the Castro pedestrian friendly and sort of, a town square. And two was, taking advantage of the upcoming changes that are happening with the Castro Theater and wanting to see us as a community be more proactive instead of reactive. In all these conversations, I also learned that our community genuinely loves the Castro, and all perspectives on issues stem from desire to see the Castro better serve us all in a place of love. The opportunity to have these important conversations, to share ideas with each other, and take actions that benefit us all is a very exciting prospect. So thank you, and I hope to get your vote.
Thank you, Calvin. Moving on to our next candidate, Eli Sokol, pronouns he, him.
Thanks, Andrew. So nice to meet all of you. My name is Eli, and I've lived in San Francisco for almost 7 years, the Castro for much of that. Like many people on this call, I moved to San Francisco because I knew it would be a place I could find myself. I can't believe the life I've been able to develop here. It still amazes me every day that this is my life. And I feel like I've benefited so much from the things this neighborhood has to offer. Nightlife, social events. I played dodgeball with Wyatt. I just did my first AIDS life cycle with a lot of people in the neighborhood this year, and it just made my life so much richer. And so that's really the reason why I'm interested in running for this board, is I want to start to give back, and I think I have something to offer. I think the first thing actually that got me interested in being more involved with my community was during COVID, when I was stuck at home in those early months and saw a lot of my favorite businesses closed. I used my skills as an architect, which is how I started my career, to draw some of my favorite restaurants and bars, sold those drawings online, and then donated the proceeds to those businesses. And it helped me find a way to get more connected with the community. I love this neighborhood. I think there's so much that makes it great, but there are also some very real challenges. A few things that stand out to me are vibrancy. I think our streets can be more activated. I think there's things this body can do to help reduce vacancy and bring in new, fresh businesses that will help keep our neighborhood relevant to those who live here and also folks who are visiting. Affordability is an issue for probably most of us. I believe that the goal of this board cannot just be to preserve prevent displacement, but also reverse it. How can we actually increase supply of housing, increase affordable housing, make use of underused sites in our neighborhood to reverse the tide that's happened over the decades. And I also am passionate about inclusivity. I have a younger sibling who's transgender, and they've helped me broaden my own understanding of where a neighborhood like the Castro could be more welcoming. I certainly have my opinions on a lot of these issues, but I also really enjoy the process of building consensus with people who have a different perspective. So thanks so much. I would love your support.
Thanks, Eli. Moving on to our next candidate, Joseph Gurton, pronouns he, him.
Hi, everyone. My name is Joe Gurton. I just want to thank everyone here, especially the folks on the board, Jen, Steven, Caesar, Andrew, Tina, all of you for the time and effort you've put into, creating this body that shows so much love to the neighborhood. I think, like a lot of folks here, I moved to San Francisco about 7 years ago. And since then, the Castro has basically been the epicenter of my life here. It's largely because that's where I built my chosen family. And I think that I was inspired to run and sort of throw my hat in the ring for the Cultural District Advisory Board, because I've seen how incredible a job the board has done sort of honoring the Castro's past and looking to, the queer history that's been made here. And I thought I could bring a fresh perspective to, I think the many challenges our neighborhood faces in being an inclusive, welcoming, accessible space for more queer people going forward. I'm very passionate about land use, and there a variety of things I want to do on the board. I know we only have 2 minutes, but I worked for several years in land use and transportation analytics. It's an area of passion for me, and so I think in this process, talking to folks in the neighborhood and learning what people care about, these recurring themes of there are too many vacant storefronts, and it's too hard to either start an organization or open a business in the neighborhood. I want to use my position on the advisory board to replicate some of the city's successful programs supporting pop-ups in vacant storefronts, like the vacant or the vibrant not vacant program that the Office of Small Business just ran in Union Square, centering not just businesses that are already in the Castro, but businesses and organizations that are led by queer family that are beyond our sort of cis gay male. That's who I am, and I really want to create more opportunity for folks outside that. I think, like others have said, there is so much underused land in the Castro. We have 2 gas stations and an empty pottery barn at Castro and Market. I'd love to do more with that, so hope to earn your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Joseph. Appreciate that. Moving right along to our next candidate, M. Rocket, pronouns she, they.
Hi, my name's Rocket. Really honored to be amongst these wonderful candidates. I did not just move to the city. I actually went to 4th grade here, and then we moved back to the South. But at the time, I knew that San Francisco was where I wanted to be, and spent every vacation possible after that until I finally moved here 24 years ago. On October the 1st is actually my anniversary. So I'm looking forward to celebrating at the street fair. I identify as a butch dyke, pronouns she and they. I'm really drawn to supporting our community. I work with a lot of different communities. I serve on multiple different boards. This would be the most significant board seat should I be chosen. My experience is primarily in community development. I really thrive on being able to support people in doing what they want to do for their work, and supporting marginalized folks, and making sure that those who have the most sorry, I'm getting my phone's buzzing. I'm really looking forward to working with this crew, and I'm drawn to service. It's how I feel connected to the communities that I work with. Thanks so much.
Thank you, M. Rocket. And moving on to our last candidate, Trey Matchin, he, him.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Good evening. My name is Trey Matchin. I use pronouns he, him. Thanks for the opportunity to speak to all of you. So just a quick little bit about me. I left the Army recently after a 20-year career and moved to Castro 2 years ago with my husband, Chris. So I'm, of all the candidates, the newest to the Castro. But when I was in the military, I did serve for 10 years under Don't Ask, Don't Tell. And that experience very much forever changed me. I had to live parallel lives and wasn't able to, really come out and be my authentic self till about 33, 34. So, all of us have our own experiences, and, we must collectively work to ensure that the Castro, remains a place of refuge and a place of hope for so many people who are unable to live freely due to their sexual orientation or gender identity, just like I was for so many years. And that's why I'm running, and that's why, we decided to move to the Castro. I'm running to help preserve the Castro's history, but I'm also very excited about its future. Recognizing that this advisory board is, a collective team working together, there are a couple policies that, if elected, I would like to focus on. Number one, help develop a more visible Castro Welcome Ambassadors program that really provides a proactive and positive engagement and friendly assistance for people visiting the Castro. As more bars and nightclubs open in the Castro, I think we need a Castro-focused community-based safety program, especially on Friday and Saturday nights to protect our community, especially given all of the anti-LGBTQ rhetoric that is prevalent across this country. Establish a cultural exchange program that partners with other LGBTQ plus districts in other countries to ensure the Castro remains a global place of hope for our community. And then finally, work alongside the advisory board members to get more programming in the Castro that organize events and festivals that really celebrate the diverse cultures within our community, showcasing the great histories and achievements of women, people of color, and the transgender community. I'm committed to service and will actively listen, engage, and adapt based on the evolving needs of our community.
Time.
So, thank you.
Thank you, Trey. Appreciate it. And wanting to say thank you to all the candidates for participating in this process. We appreciate your time and interest in the advisory board and want to wish everyone good luck. And now I'll go ahead and pass it over to Jen.
Hi, thanks everyone. So I'm gonna move to the Q&A, but before I do that, I actually want to recognize that we have 3 advisory board members in the room who just don't happen to be members of the governance committee. That's the governance committee is who's kind of running the election. And so I wanted just to give them a chance to introduce themselves quickly. So one of the members is Diego Gomez. Diego, can you introduce yourself?
Hello.
Go ahead.
Hi. Not sure if I'm even pointing this the right way. Oh, the video's not on. I'm in a hardware store actually. My name is Diego Gomez. I'm a teacher at City College and California College of the Arts. I paint murals and do all sorts of stuff. Nice to meet you all.
Thanks so much, Diego. And then another board member is Eve Chu.
Hi, everybody. My name is Eve Chu, he, they pronouns. I've been member of the advisory board for a little bit now. I am really excited to hear from all of you in Q&A. And yeah, thank you for being a part of this process.
Thanks, Eve. And then the third person is Braden Mansouri.
Hi all, my name is Braden Mansouri, pronouns he, him. I was elected in last year's election around this time and co-chaired the land use committee. And I want to thank you all for taking the time to run this position. I look forward to hearing from you.
Thanks, Braden. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the Q&A session, which is just a great opportunity for us to hear from you folks, like based on questions that people are asking. And so as we said before, the audience members are asked to submit their questions via chat, ideally directly to Stephen Torres, the moderator. And so just how we're going to structure it is we actually, this never happens. We're running kind of early. We're not running late. Like, I don't think that's ever happened to me on any Zoom anything personally. So, and so we might have a little more time for Q&A than we first planned, because we first planned about 20 minutes. So we hope to get through a number of questions. So we won't ask every candidate to answer each question. You're welcome to answer each question if you want. So I'll just ask you to, if you want to answer a question, use the raise hand feature. And then I'll call on you, and just once you've answered a question, when we get to the next one, I'll make sure that others have had a chance to speak before I call on you again. And just, this is just in the interest of hearing multiple voices. And so you will have 1 minute to answer the question when you're called on. Okay. So I guess we can go ahead and start. Stephen is going to read the questions and I'm going to kind of facilitate time.
All right. Dr. Reck, the first question is framed in the context of what is your commitment to racial, social, and gender equity in the Castro? Specifically, what are your thoughts on Mayor Breed's latest decision to drug test individuals as a condition of receiving welfare?
Nice. And Stephen, would you be able to like cut and paste the question into the chat for everyone to be able to see it?
Sure. In which case I would just say, yeah, here, let me just go for that. Just a sec.
All right,
Okay.
thank you. Okay, so I'll give you a second to read the question. And just like I said, go ahead and just use the raise hand feature if you feel like you'd like to speak.
All right. I see M Rocket followed by Joe Gerton.
Okay, I'll handle calling on the people since I'm doing the timing. Okay. All right, thank you. Okay, Rocket, why don't you go first?
Thank you. I feel like social, racial, gender equity in the Castro is one of the most critical issues that we have. I feel like the privilege that's enabled the whole city, really, but especially the Castro, to be so isolated in its singular gender and racial presentation is problematic for people who do not match that. And I feel that centering those among our community who don't match that is a way to bring everyone in, so that everyone feels welcome. As for Mayor Breed's statement, didn't that come out today about drug testing welfare recipients? I think that's abhorrent. I feel that
And that's time.
Thank you.
Good
enough.
All right, so next person is Joe.
Yeah, thanks for the question. I think, two-part question about Mayor Breed's sort of declaration. I mean, I'm a pragmatist. I believe in, taking approaches to our problems that work. And there's a whole lot of evidence that shows that drug testing welfare recipients not only doesn't work, it's just, it excludes a lot of poor folks from, accessing resources that could help them out of poverty, and it makes the programs more expensive to run. So it's kind of a triple bottom line loss for everyone. In terms of racial, social, economic, broad-based equity in the Castro specifically, I think that's, it's a massive issue. And I think part of that is about bringing in folks who, don't look like me, who, don't currently have gathering spaces in the Castro, and doing that through, the organizational power that we have as a board and the programs that we run around supporting small businesses, pop-ups, things like that. I mentioned I'm passionate about land use and transportation. Disproportionately, folks who are victims of traffic violence.
And that's time. Thank you so much. Brian?
Thank you for this question. I was reading about this. I can't remember if it was yesterday or today. London Breed's proposal to drug test welfare recipients, and it's one of the most unkind and right-wing proposals that I've ever heard come out of San Francisco, quite frankly. And I was honestly, I was shocked, and so I don't even know where to go from there. I'll agree with, and I think most people that want to, be involved in this board would probably all agree that, bringing, more diversity to the Castro is critical to the success of this community. I don't know that we're going to see much in the way of disagreement there, but how do we actually make it happen? And I think that's going to be the real challenge that faces us, is what can we do and how do we do it? And so I'm looking forward to that.
Thank you. Any other candidates who would like to answer this question, or should we move on to another question? Okay, great. On.
Thanks. Yeah, I think Mayor Breed is, trying to work within a system that, has long ago dismantled a lot of the social and the mental health resources that we've had. But, the system of conservatorship that is being introduced is not really the right way to go about it. I think taking care of people's mental health and, drug addiction is not a choice for a lot of people. And it's the wrong way to go about it in a lot of ways. And for racial, social, and gender equity, as a gay Asian man here, I can't run away from that fact, and just being who I am. And I really would strive to increase the equity here in the Castro.
Thank you, On.
All right, the next question is, Director Aguirre shared the mission of the Castro Cultural District. With the mission in the forefront of your mind, could you share how you would put people before profit and corporations?
Hi, Trey, go ahead.
Thanks. I was trying to figure out where the raise hand button was. So my apologies.
Story of my life.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think, the history, or excuse me, the mission, I think we've got small businesses, I think, make up so much and provide so much to the community. And I think that's where, a lot of focus that I would like to apply myself, if elected for the advisory board, because I do believe that small business can generate so much for a community. And so I feel like that's one way to, really kind of put the Castro before profit and corporations, and for the most part, keep people happy with the Castro and in the direction that we're going. Thank you.
Thank you, Trey. And so let's see, that's Eli, right? Eli?
Thank you. It's a great question. And the first, I guess, a relevant topic that comes to mind is the retail vacancy, and it ties to small business, and vacancy impacts everybody who lives in the neighborhood. I've met with Supervisor Mandelman before to educate myself on why do we have so much vacancy? Why has it been a slower recovery than some of the other neighborhood retail in other parts of the city? And I'm really passionate about finding ways to incentivize more small businesses that are local to invest in this neighborhood, and understand what policy or other reasons are preventing that from happening in the first place. Some of it's landlord greed, some of it's enforcement of the vacancy tax, which has actually not been enforced as well as I think it could be based on the data I've seen online. So I think there's ways to bring small business in that benefits the community, diverse business, in a smart way. That's a win-win for everyone.
Thank you, Eli. Calvin?
Cool. Hi, everyone. I think, one of the major propositions that, or piece of policy that I'd like to work on, or policy issues, is literally making the Castro more friendly to people. There are not really public gathering spaces in the Castro that aren't tied, to existing businesses. There's no benches. There's no, there's not really like, like an exit place to say, hey, meet me in the Castro, and then you go, and you know exactly where you're talking about. One of the things, I think I've talked to a lot of folks who, again, loved, the streets being shut down, and having more of like a public plaza, a place to walk, a place to, just go meet folks, and kind of be more pedestrian friendly. So I don't know, I think the focus of things that I'd like to work on is literally people, and putting them, over profits, and getting folks in the street, and getting them places to be.
Thanks a lot, Calvin. And I see Joe's hand is up, and also just to put out there, everyone's had a chance to speak. So anyone else who's spoken before, please feel free to raise your hand if you want to answer this question. And so Joe, why don't you go first?
Awesome, thanks. Yeah, I think a lot about investment and opportunity in our neighborhood, opportunity for folks who want to move to the Castro to get good jobs in the neighborhood, to be able to, create the kinds of, incredible creative small businesses that we get to go to every day. So I think, when I think of what that distinction between profit and people looks like, I draw a big distinction in my mind between, a local entrepreneur starting an amazing enterprise that's a vehicle of their passion that supports jobs in the neighborhood, and, a company like Chevron operating a gas station at Castro and Market. I think there's a big difference there. I'm so excited about the investment that Another Planet is making in the Castro Theater. I think I see my potential role on this board as holding them accountable to the commitments they've made, as a steward of the Castro Theater, as a partner in the neighborhood. So I'm, excited for what they're going to bring and what that's going to mean for all the small businesses in the neighborhood that people love to come to and patronize. So that's one of the ways that I think about, balancing.
And that's time.
Thanks.
Thanks so much. All right, anyone else want to, Rocket?
I don't feel like we need to and make it easier for people to move here. I mean, San Francisco has a housing vacancy rate of 7%. That's really tight. The Castro doesn't have trouble filling apartments, and that's not an issue. What is at issue is people who cannot afford to have housing at all. And our queer people who are living on the streets, those are our people too. It's not just the people who can afford to live in a swanky Castro apartment. We have to be able to care for all of our queers. We represent the world queer hub of Mecca queerdom in San Francisco, and we have to be able to take care of all of our people, or at least strive to take care of all of our people above the profits of a corporation who wants to benefit from the people.
And that's time. Thank you. All right, anyone else want to speak to this question? All right, let's move on.
The next question is, what ideas for policies would you like to create or implement while an advisory board member? Specifically, policies that support catering, specifically policies that support centering underrepresented LGBTQ community members, lesbians and bisexual women, LGBTQ people of color, and transgender individuals.
Thank you. Trey?
Thank you. Yeah. So when I made my opening statement, I made, some suggestions on policies that, I would like to see, enacted or at least worked on if elected. And, one of those was really kind of organizing those events and festivals that celebrate the diverse cultures. And I think we really need to, look at our inclusive programming and what that looks like. And so, I've been here for 2 years. And so obviously I have not been around to see, all of the activities, all the events and festivals that take place in the Castro. But I do think we need to showcase more of our Black, Indigenous, people of color, women, and their histories, achievements, and traditions. And, how we do that, I think as a collaborative team, I think we can actually, work to make that happen. But that definitely is something that I would look forward to working on. So thank you.
Thanks very much. Brian?
Thank you. One thing that I would love to do is find a way to support and promote artists specifically through the cultural district. Whether that's also dovetailing with the empty storefronts and perhaps doing like an artist in residence program or something like that that's paid for and supported by the district that could potentially specifically target underrepresented communities. I think would be a fantastic thing that we could potentially do. That's all.
Great, thanks very much, Brian. On?
Yeah, this has been mentioned before, but I think just creating policies that would really allow us and our community members to, activate the vacant spaces in the Castro, like the Pottery Barn, the Los Amigos restaurant that just went under, and really just bringing in more events that could educate the public and people about things like trans visibility, bringing in more queer-owned businesses, and just having more events and spaces and time for people that are less represented here.
Thank you, On. Joe?
Yeah, thanks, Jen. I think there's so much that we can do that's more on the programming side. I know the question was about policy. folks have had amazing ideas on civic art and events, and that's amazing. I think on the policy side, there's a citywide potential change to the planning code that the mayor and the board of supervisors are sort of talking about right now. I believe the mayor introduced it in March. And the goal of that is to remove some of the pretty insane red tape that we impose on small businesses. We've all heard stories of, person tries to open an iced tea shop and spends 18 months paying rent and going through, hearing after hearing. That's part of the reason why we have so many vacant storefronts. So I'd like to bring the Castro's perspective to that. That policymaking effort at the board of supervisors, that's sort of something I'd like to focus on.
Thanks, Joe. Eli?
Thanks, Jen. So somewhat related to Joe, having worked in housing development in the city, I know that we have a lot of laws and planning code that is well-intentioned, but doesn't always get its intended results. And especially when it comes to retail, I think there's a way where this group can spearhead efforts to attract businesses that are led by queer people of color or transgender individuals or other minorities to come to this neighborhood. I don't want to speculate why we don't see as many of those folks around, but I think part of it is they don't have businesses where they feel as welcome here, that bring them here. And so if we can find ways through legislation to prioritize those kind of businesses in terms of approvals and speed, I think that's, or maybe even grants, I think that's exciting. I worked with the transgender cultural district to do a housing project in the Tenderloin that built a community space when that group was just created in our housing project, and collaborate on design.
Fine.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. All right. Anyone else want to jump in on this question, or should we move to another? To another. Oh, Calvin? Or no?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry. I thought that was Calvin's voice, but it was you. Do you want to move on to the next, Stephen?
Sure. Calvin, did you want to answer that last one? Okay. All right. The next question is, over the last few years, the city of San Francisco failed in engaging with the Castro LGBTQ cultural district on issues related to the Castro Theater, essentially cutting out the community from the process and later drawing apologies from the planning department. What do you think the city could do better to work with the cultural district on future issues surrounding cultural heritage preservation?
So on that question, the couple people who didn't respond to the previous, if you would like to answer this, raise your hand. And if not, I'll move on to other folks. Okay, let's start with Rocket.
I worked with the Save the Castro Theater Coalition, and it was a great frustration, the roadblocks that we had to face with the city. If the question was about what could be better, what could they have done better, they could have listened. They could have made time to meet with the cultural district and with the coalition to discuss alternatives to what they were bulldozing forward with. Any sort of collaborative effort would have been a vast improvement. Yeah.
Great, thank you, Rocket. Calvin, did you want to respond to this one? Yes. Okay, go ahead.
Yes. Yes, sorry, I'm on my phone and I also don't know where the raise hand button is on my phone.
Okay.
I think I mean, this question, I mean, it sounds like, bringing folks in earlier is always helpful. I wasn't there, in the beginning of the talks. It says like for a few years. I didn't realize, that maybe this is an issue that's been going on for a few years. It seemed pretty sudden last year, and I think that it caused like a really strong reaction for a lot of folks. I think, I don't know, I think to Rocket's point of view, just listening and saying, hey, like we actually are going to take some of the things you mentioned. I saw, all the suggestions that were put forth and taking those and saying, okay, we are actually going to listen and do them and hold regular meetings with you. And I think, drawing those commitments early from anyone else who is seeking to, do renovations or do anything with cultural heritage, spots is a really great idea.
Great, thanks. All right, any other candidates like to respond to that question? Trey, go ahead.
Yeah, this is just, I mean, it's pretty simple. And since I wasn't here when some of it was being debated, I think a liaison between the cultural district and the city, in making sure that the voices and issues are being discussed. And I think if that's being done, then at least we have a voice, and maybe we have a voting voice in it as well. So to me, it's just like a liaison between the cultural district and the city. Thank you.
Thank you. To Eli.
Thanks. So like I think some of the other candidates, I don't know all the intricacies of how exactly every step of the process went, but living in the neighborhood, I understand that this was a topic that people felt very strongly about on all sides. The theater is really the hub of the neighborhood, and probably the most significant demand generator for people coming to visit the neighborhood. So I understand why it's such a hot button issue. I think in general, the city could set a process of engaging cultural districts, whether it's ours or others, whenever they're implicated by a development in the neighborhood. So there's a clear kind of point of communication that begins early on and is engaged throughout the process, rather than leaving it to the applicant to do it on their own. That way there's expectations set from the get-go. I think groups like this have a job to. Oh,
thank
okay.
you.
Thanks.
Any other folks want to weigh in? Okay. Tina?
Yes, I don't have a question for the candidates. More, I want to share a clarification before we end our gathering today, and that is to emphatically share that the advisory board works on policies, not programs, and many of the ideas that have been put forth here are actually programs. So I just want to share, in case that's not clear, that is not under the purview of advisory board members. And I do that intentionally because I find sometimes people have agendas when they come into a role like this, where they think maybe that's not actually true, even if they've heard it multiple times. And I want to clarify that a policy, it might be worthwhile if people are interested in learning how policies are developed, to reach out to me or to the executive co-chairs. The intention behind me sharing this is so that you're not frustrated if you are elected to the advisory board as a member, and you find yourself in a situation where you're wondering, why is it that you're not able to dictate the programs and operations of the organization? That simply is not part of the job. It's not part of the role and responsibility of advisory board members. And I just want to make sure that people are set up for success and that there's clear communication around roles and responsibilities. I want to, if there is a question around that, I welcome you, any of you, reaching out to me directly or reaching out to Jen and Stephen. So for me, a huge takeaway headline that I'd like for each of the candidates to take away from this is policy, not programs. Programs are ideas that would be operationalized by staff. That is not under the purview of the advisory board. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Gary. All right, let's move on to another question.
All right, the next question is, could you share specifically how you would develop policy around creating opportunities for small businesses that would benefit lesbians, bi women, trans people, and BIPOC queer folks.
Yeah, I think, thanks, Jen. Yeah, um, I think, similar to the last question about a policy, I think when I chose to run for this, I was chatting with a friend of mine who's a trans woman who lives in San Francisco and said, hey, I'd really like to think about how to bring more, underrepresented small business owners into the neighborhood. Would you ever consider doing something, opening a space? And she responded and was like, I have no idea how to navigate starting a business in San Francisco. So I think when we have policy that is so Byzantine and arcane as we do today around starting small businesses, that favors people who have resources and time, and that's folks who are white, privileged, wealthy, not folks who are underrepresented, not white, not cis gay men. And so I think that's the lens that I want to take to policymaking around making it easier to bring that kind of creativity and underrepresented small business to the Castro, is not only sort of supporting those business owners, but reducing barriers to entry for them to bring what they want to bring to our neighborhood.
Thank you. Other candidates want to weigh in on that? Rocket? Oh, wait, sorry, hold for 1 second. Any candidates who didn't respond to the previous question? Would you like to respond to this one first, either An or Brian? On?
Yeah, I mean, I think creating policy, back when I was working on creating bidding for contracts before, we give a lot of priority to minority-owned, women-owned, queer-owned businesses. And I think creating policy that surrounds that and gives those business owners or people a leg up in the community and just kind of prioritizes their, especially for the Castro, would be very important.
All right, thank you. Brian, did you want to respond?
Thank you. I mean, it's clearly very important and something that I think we all agree would, is critical for the success of the Castro. Specifically how we develop policy. I think that the question here is about specifics. I don't have specifics, but it's certainly something where it's an opportunity to listen and learn about those barriers to entry into small businesses, specifically in the Castro, and learn what those barriers are, and then discuss how we can kind of knock those barriers down, if you will. Thank you.
Thanks so much. So now, sorry, let me return back to Rocket, who would raise their hand first, and then Trey, you'll be next.
I feel that I don't have all of those answers of how to reach people that aren't me, basically. I feel like it's the same in working in anti-racist work, that it's a thinking process that shouldn't be about bringing people into where I am, but going to where they are, intellectually understanding where they're coming from. And so I would want to get input as much as possible from the people that we are trying to recruit, essentially. How can we support them? I would want to hear from them how they would want to be supported. I would want to know what would be the easiest steps for other people to take to be able to utilize this kind of resource of a cultural district that could support them.
Thanks a lot. Trey.
Yeah, similar to Rocket and Brian, I think, listening and feedback is key. Because that's how we, are able to really understand and develop policy. Regular surveys, conducting surveys to understand the needs and challenges, and then, really providing those feedback loops where we establish a system where the community can actually provide the input that will help then develop the policy that would benefit the lesbian, bi women, trans people, and BIPOC, queer folks.
Thanks very
Thank you.
much. All right, anyone else want to respond to this one? Okay, so we're going to do one more question. These have all been really excellent questions, and all of the candidates have been giving such thoughtful answers, and I know this is probably exhausting. So thanks a lot for hanging in for a little more time than we first expected. And so we'll do one last question.
Okay, the last question is, are you able to make the basic commitments of regular attendance at the district's regular meetings? And are you comfortable serving in this publicly transparent and accountable role in compliance with the San Francisco Sunshine Ordinance and California Brown Act, even if this means receiving public criticism and comment in real time?
All right, so the first folks who could respond are Calvin and Eli, if you'd like to. But anyone who wants to answer, raise your hand and I'll just call on folks.
Hey, yes. I mean, the answer is yes, and I think the answer should be yes for everyone. In my original notes for my candidate statement, I was like, this is a really scary thing to do because of the opening yourself up to the public, and it's a different way, of having to receive feedback. I think I'm a pretty outgoing person, and I really like to put myself out there, but it is scary. But I think it is worth it to open yourself up in that way. And I think it's okay to acknowledge that, yeah, it's a little terrifying, to be open to public criticism and feedback on your own ideas. And I think if everyone can commit to being open to hearing someone's idea, wrestling with them, and being okay, being a little comfortable, I think we'll all go really far.
Thank you, Calvin. So Eli, why don't you go next?
The short answer is yes. I'm here because I want to contribute and dedicate my time, and I'm aware of what'll be asked and expected of me. So, yes.
Thank you. Trey, you want to go next?
Answer is yes. I love public discourse. I love hearing, different ideas, opposing ideas. And I think that's what, this position will allow for all of us to experience. And I think that is why, like I said in my beginning statement, service is important to me. So I want to continue service, and that's part of it. So thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, like everyone else here, it's a definite yes for me. I think, one of the things that Castro has given me is confidence in who I am and self-knowledge. And part of that is through the chosen family that I've built here in the Castro. And I think that, hopefully through this process, everyone here has come to understand, I'm not someone who needs everyone to like me. I'm very clear about how I feel about things, what my sort of positions are and opinions are. And I make that commitment just as much as I make the commitment to transparency and to receiving feedback and to listening. So yeah, definitely. I'm so excited to hopefully have the opportunity to serve on this board.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm very committed to, helping this committee and this advisory board reach a quorum at every meeting. And, as an artist, I know how scary it is to put your voice out there and receive public criticism, but, I'm here to listen to criticism and to learn from it and, to put my voice out there.
Thank you, Brian.
Obviously the answer is yes. And, I'm a listener, I'm a consensus builder. Ultimately, things can be controversial. And certainly some of those things are difficult, but, ultimately, I think, we all want to do right by the Castro, and we all want to make this a better place. So, if that means sometimes we have to discuss things or, your name gets dragged through the mud, well, fine. It's ultimately, we're all trying to do something good for the community. And so, I think we're all kind of pushing in the same direction here. So thank you for the question.
Thanks very much.
And Jen, I just wanted to note that candidate M. Rocket also replied yes to the question in the chat.
Great. Thank you so much. Okay, well, that brings us to the end of our question and answer session. Thanks so much for folks in the room who provided their questions, and thanks so much for the candidates for providing your answers. So I'm going to pass it over to Co-Chair Torres to close us out.
Thank you, Dr. Reck. I just want to echo that which my colleagues have already shared, which is my sincerest gratitude and appreciation for all of you stepping up to running for this advisory board. I've served on it now, it will be 4 years come December. And I am going to be very frank with you. It can be a demanding role. And that is on multiple levels. It's in terms of the time commitment. It's in terms of the emotional commitment. The time commitment is extremely important. I strongly urge every single one of you to make sure that you are able to make the regular commitments to meetings. One of you mentioned quorum. Quorum is an important part of this. It brings our work to a screeching halt if we do not have that. Ultimately, as a governing board, it is not our job to send out orders to our district staff or our district director, but rather to support them. And we do so through policy development and through attendance and adding our voice to this discussion. And also there is a great deal of emotional weight that comes with this work. We are a community that has had to fight for our rights and are centering our culture since the beginning of time. And this comes with a great amount of sometimes fatigue. But this is important work. And the Castro serves not only in its physical footprint as the queer center of San Francisco, but is largely viewed by the city and county of San Francisco to that effect. So the deployment of multiple resources and policy changes are all implemented through the Castro that affect all of our siblings within the LGBTQ community. And we also serve as a center for this culture across the globe. So with that, I just want to thank my co-chair, the district director, our governance chair, and all the members of the advisory board who've attended tonight and those who have not, and also every one of you and all the members of our community for attending tonight. Deepest thanks and good luck.